All right, welcome to Read the Lines Celebrity Insider Show for the big one, the 150th Open Championship. And I have a guest. I have a man that lives right in St. Andrews. His name's Dan Naudo. He's the executive assistant manager at the Fairmount St. Andrews, which is just a couple miles away from the old course where they are playing the Open Championship this week. Dan, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you, Keith. Thank you for having me on.
All right, first things first. There are hundreds of thousands of people entering into St. Andrews this week. You live in St. Andrews. What has it been like this week? What is the vibe like in town?
This week so far has been absolutely, it's been crazy from a work perspective, but it's been amazing to be part of and be involved in so far. The the town is so excited. I think since the first structure started going up on the 1st of March, there's been a real anticipation and buzz around international travel coming back to St Andrews. That combining with the Open and the 150th Open, I think it's just doubled the anticipation. So
All right, so a little background on you. You're a PGA member. You're in charge of all things golf and a lot of other things, the services, the hospitality up there at the Fairmount St. Andrews, which I mentioned is just a couple miles away from the old course. Now, how many times have you played the old course? How familiar are you with it?
probably over about 50 times now. So very fortunate because I live in St Andrews, have my local residence membership for the town. So it's a fantastic perk to being up in St Andrews to have the honour to play it so many times.
In your opinion, what makes it so special?
Um, St Andrews it just puts a smile on your face. It really is. I remember the first time I did play it. You sometimes look at the golf course and you go, yeah, I might have played some better golf courses out there. And the more you play St Andrews is the only way I can explain it. The more special it becomes, and the more you appreciate what it stands for. It's very hard to compare the old course to any other course when you really look back in the history and look at, say, how the old course still hosts a major championship compared to the other golf courses that it goes up against. And I think that's the significance to it as well as obviously the history of the home of golf. But yeah, every time I'm playing my pro shot to 18, I'm still nervous. I've still got the jitters. And there's always people around watching as well, which just for the added pressure. And I think that kind of sums it up. Even how many times I've played it, them nerves are still with you when you play 1 and 18.
Well, when you're playing it, there's only a couple people walking around, right? Pedestrians, etc., people in town. There's going to be a few people there on Sunday. And, that's one of my questions. How big of a moment do you think this is? And do you think the moment of this whole thing really matters that much to the guys playing? Do you think it adds to the nervous nature of someone pulling this off? Maybe like if someone was a first time major winner versus somebody like a Jordan Spieth that is going for multiple major wins.
I think when you hear all the players talk, everyone wants to be in St Andrews and everyone wants to win the Open in St Andrews. Tiger Woods did his interview last week, and he said the famous one that Jack says, "You haven't made it until you've won an Open in St Andrews," and I think that sticks with a lot of the players. And that's how they feel. Colin Malcara was on site with us yesterday and pretty much said the same thing about the importance of playing in St Andrews and the home of golf and the nervousness and anticipation that there is around the players as well. So I think it's vitally important to their careers, and if they're going to win one major, this is the one that they would want to win. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think that this one's circled on a lot of people's calendars for sure, every 5 years or so when they can get here. Now, you're a local golf course operator. What There's so much talk when it comes to the Open Championship about the weather and the course conditions because it's so drastically different than what we're used to over here in the States. What are the course conditions for maybe just your golf course, but also the old golf course leading up to the championship?
Yep. So this year's been very surprisingly in Scotland cold, very cold and dry in the lead up in the whole of the year really. So the golf course down in town at the minute is very firm. It's going to be very firm and fast, which is fantastic. That's what they would have been hoping to get. It's what they want from an Open Championship and from a links golf course, and it is going to be playing exactly that. They've got the greens in fantastic condition, rolling lovely, but as always, it's going to be down to the wind factor. And let's see what the wind throws out over the coming days. The weather forecast looks fantastic here for us. It's going to probably be around 20 to 22 degrees every day. Not too much rain predicted at all. I don't think there'll be any. So it's just going to be in the afternoon, whether that wind picks up on Friday afternoon. That's the worst one at the minute, but I think they're going to get a lovely weekend. So I would see some low scores out there as well.
All right, let's get back to the golf course. You've played it, like you said, you mentioned over 50 times. You're a PGA member. You're a good golfer, right? What kind of skills do you feel like you need to bring to the golf course when you play there in order to try to have a good round that day? And what kind of skills do you think these guys are going to need to show off or showcase this week in order to contend?
There's a lot of opportunity off the tee around the old course. You don't need to be the straightest out there. It's these guys can open their shoulders on a few holes, and if they are wayward, if they get the right miss, the famous shot on the old course is miss left. If you miss left on the front nine, you don't get in any trouble. So they've got a bit of room out there off the tee. For me, it's obviously avoid the bunkers because some of the bunkers are extremely penile, and the main thing on the old course is the putting. It's famous for the double greens. You've got 6 double greens out on the old course, extremely large greens. The 6th hole is 99 yards from front to back, and it will be, whoever gets the short stick working the best is going to be the one who comes out on top on that course.
In working with players in town and knowing all the local golfers, is there any kind of local knowledge when it comes to the greens on how to contend with these things? Like you mentioned, I mean, the greens on average are like 13,000 square feet if you separate the shared ones, right? And they're 30,000 square feet or on average when you put them together. I mean, that's twice the size of Augusta National. It's 3 times the size of what they faced at the U.S. Open at the Country Club. I mean, it's just like it's like another planet of putting. As a local and someone who plays there a lot, how do people contend with that?
You just get used to kind of long putts. That's and I think the other thing out here as well that we have to remember is the speed of the greens is going to be a lot different. The greens will not be up at kind of 13 and a half. So when they're hitting some of the greens, which maybe they would have missed in some of would have been a missed greening regulation in some of these other majors, could be leaving themselves, 60-foot putt, and it's going to be the pace because they're going to be a lot slower than any of the overseas players are going to be used to coming over here because they'll probably, if the wind's not up, they'll probably only be stimping around 10 and a half foot. If the wind's getting up on a day closer to 10 foot. So that's where the greens will be running at. So the pace of the greens is going to be critical out there. And then if you get a headwind, anything uphill going into the wind, it's going to be a struggle to get the ball to the hole on some of them. But I think it's, the course management for missing in the right side of the greens. So the caddy is going to play a big role and going to give some good local knowledge. Because the greens are big, it is about, it's an easy green to easy green to hit, but the wrong miss, then there's some impossible up and downs. So
that, you're touching upon something that just popped into my head, and I really feel like I need to ask. I hear this all the time as a golf fan, but also someone that's telling a lot of golf stories, is that they say that St. Andrews, or the Old Course specifically, is one of the most strategic golf courses in the world. Now, to the average viewer, they look at it, there's no trees. It looks very, kind of flat and plain. And like you said, you can miss left all the time, at least on the front nine. What makes St. Andrews and the challenge that all of these guys have this week such a strategic golf course?
I think, even though it's off the tee, as I say, it's pretty laid out in front of you. It becomes the approach shots um, because there's so many undulations in the greens. A lot of the times you're not seeing the base of the flag. And obviously when it is firm and fast out there, and you're coming in not being able to see the base of the flag, it's a very hard judgment call. Obviously these players are a little bit better than me, but when you're out there trying to control that ball onto the green, and you can't see exactly where it is, and over the first ridge there's always another ridge. So the greens book, from the caddy does his studying beforehand, as I say, will be a vital part in their strategy out there, just to knowing how that first and second bounce is going to react from where they land.
Now, as a local, you have to have some local knowledge. So if there's a rookie there at St. Andrews that's playing the old course in the Open Championship for the first time, what would you pass along as one piece of advice as they prepare for the championship this week?
Oh, it's the I'll go for two bits. So off
Okay.
the tee, miss it left, which is the famous bit of advice that you say to everybody. Everybody you take out onto the old course for the first time, you say, if you're gonna miss it left.
Okay.
That is that's what was first told to me when I come up here, and the more you play it, the more you understand why. And it's not the longest the golf course is out there, so you don't need to attack it. With driver everywhere, and it's going to be firm. It's going to be fast. I think when Tiger won, was it '05, and he used the same one
Yeah.
iron for all four rounds. Famously did the one iron for all four rounds, and I think that still plays evident today when they go out there and play in the conditions and how firm and fast it is. So they don't need to be so aggressive off the tee as well.
All right. Now you're a fan, but you're also a local and you're a PGA member, so you've got this insider knowledge that maybe or maybe doesn't help, but I'm curious. Who do you think, being in town, seeing everyone show up, experiencing the practice rounds, hearing all the stories, listening to the press conferences, who do you think of the favorites? Who do you like this week to win?
I think the exciting thing when it comes to the majors is that any of them can win. They're all that good out there. I think I quite fancy Spieth, to be honest with you. Seems to be there or
Okay.
thereabouts at the moment. So he will definitely be one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and probably having a side bet on myself. I don't think you can look past Xander and Fitzpatrick at the minute with the run of form that they're in, and Fitzpatrick especially, he can grind out a score. He's going to be used to playing in the wind if it does pick up as well, with the ball flight and how he hits it, and he's got an all-round solid game at the moment. So they're three out of the top guys for me. Outsiders that I always look at. We say outsiders, but not too much. I feel that someday coming it's got to be Tony's opportunity, and also a side bet for me always, just because he's staying in my apartment in town, is the South African golfer Dean Burmester. So because he's staying in town, I see his practice and follow him closely, and he's playing very well.
So, funny story about Burmeister. Last weekend at the Genesis Scottish Open, we were live betting him on Saturday and Sunday, and he cashed both days. If people don't know him, he is a fabulous ball striker, and he's definitely one of those names where, certainly for a top 40 or maybe even a top 20 this week, I could see him doing it in that. And the Tony you mentioned is Tony Finau?
Indeed, yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Tony's played well there in the Alfred Dunhill, and he's got. It's interesting because we don't think of him as an Open Championship player per se, being from America, but he's had some really good showings there. I think he's had 3 top 15s in the last 3 times he's played there, so I think that's a great pick as well.
And when it comes to it play a lot different to it does in the Dunhill, but he does fly it really low as well, which I think the wind picks up here normally for the Dunhill Championship when it's later in the year at the end of September, and I think that's why he's done well previously. So he's going to get that run and take advantage of the firm, fast fairways as well.
Well, you know what? It's been a pleasure to take advantage of your local knowledge there, Dan Naudo. I can't thank you enough for coming on the Read the Line Celebrity Insider Show. You have been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. My pleasure.